Just one suit tonight?
We don't want to know the backstory on that.
They used to call me Hands Aaron, too.
All right, let's move on.
TMI, TMI.
Let's move
Call
forward.
to order this facility and technology meeting. It is 5:34 PM on the 14th of October. Roll call. Bianca, you want me to do it? You do it.
You do roll call with just who's on the
The committee.
committee.
Oh.
And then also here are
All
the
right, so
everyone
who's on
else.
the committee? You are?
Gary,
Is Nikki out?
Oh, Nikki's on it now? Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Roll call, Nikki Papiano,
Here,
Arma Manicha,
Here.
and myself, Gary Ippolito. Public participation.
and
Is there?
um,
Oh, I'm
That's
sorry.
you.
Yes, I wrote it down too. And Sandy Mangan.
here,
Teacher rep.
Sorry about that. Teacher rep. Is Jess on it?
yes, she's on the committee.
Okay.
She's on the committee.
I'm not on the committee, I'm just here.
not just, you're here.
Do we have any
that's
public
good.
participation? No. Number 4, discussion next steps. THS capital improvement review.
Right, you wanted to look at the maintenance of the $112 million broken down. So that's, if it doesn't pass, we're gonna have to do a number of things, as we talked about, the outside of the building, and you can't do that on 2 months basis. You know, then it would take you 10 years probably to finish that whole project, and you couldn't do it because the heating and electrical are in the walls there. So that would be a project for a whole year, where you would probably have to close the high school, move the kids somewhere else. They've done that in Newtown or Brookfield. Brookfield about 7, 8 years ago, where they had a problem. They had to close the high school, and those kids went second shift to Danbury High School for the whole year.
Second shift?
Well, in the afternoon.
Yeah.
The Danbury kids would go in the morning, and then they would bus those kids,
Brookfield kids to the.
yeah,
Danbury High
which,
School.
for a year because they had a problem at the high school.
Busing class
How,
there.
how would this be funded typically? I mean, the problem with this number, this issue, presenting it this, or approaching it this way, and I really don't call it maintenance. I said
No.
yesterday to some people, it's really a replacement. You know, we're not maintaining anything in this line
No,
item here.
no.
It's really replacement. We're not gonna be repairing plumbing, we're not gonna be repairing windows, we're not gonna be repairing insulation, there is no insulation. We're not gonna be repairing, you know, code lights or code doors or anything. The abatement's not gonna be a repair, it's gonna be an abatement. But how would it be funded in that, in my mind, I said this last week at the building committee meeting. Everything that has to do with those windows and those exterior panels is an unknown, and I don't know that anybody could ever give us a number on that.
No.
It'll be a number that's an estimate with plus, you know, overhead and profit for anything above and beyond contract. I'm not sure we get a contract on that. Unless we took apart the numerous windows and took some from top to bottom and followed it down to the ground. But I still don't know how somebody would do it.
So, I mean, typically in a repair project like this, the town would budget or bond for funding and then put the reimbursement request into the state, just like you would do with small projects, so that the state would look at each one of these as a small project, basically. It's a nightmare. It's a paperwork logistical nightmare.
Gary's.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Nick.
And so for this, you have to do this renovation project to get any reimbursement from the state. Because like some of these line items, you know, where the estimated reimbursement is 100%, you can't just go to the state with that. It has to be part of the bigger package.
No, and then
Well, you can go to the state with a couple of small items, but they may say, you know, hey, you know.
the biggest part of the problem with this is that abatement runs into concrete, which runs into metals, which runs into plastics, which runs into thermal, which runs into doors runs into plastics, specialties runs into, everything starts running into each other. So it's not like you can just say, okay, we're gonna take and do the thermal protection at 100%, and then we're gonna pick another project, because once you do the thermal protection, you're opening up so much of the building that so many other things have to get pulled into it.
So when we met with the state, they really looked down on, this is like Band-Aiding.
Yeah.
For that very reason, because you're gonna have project upon project upon project. So it really doesn't help the situation. You don't ever really fix things. So even though the state requires that you put in the figures for the repairs and then a renovation and then build as new, that was out of the get-go, from Costa Diamantis to the other folks who work with him, Michelle Dixon and Kermit Thompson. Everybody in his department were saying, why should we do this? Because they have to approve it. Why should they okay this? It's penny wise, pound foolish, basically, because they look at construction as an investment. So why should they give you this money if it's this piecemeal, and ultimately it's going to end up costing you more money in the long run? So that, from our meeting with them in February, that's what they said at the get-go. So,
Plus, you're not consolidating anything.
correct.
And they want their investment to last a minimum of 20 years. They don't, for the next 20 years, they do not want to give you another penny
Yep.
to anything that's on this list. So it's a 20-year investment for the state.
Fiona?
I think this is where a lot of the confusion comes in. So some of these things, I'm just gonna pick on the mechanical plumbing. That would really need to be done through a capital project.
Mhm.
And the capital projects are very different than our maintenance items. And I think this is what's generating a lot of confusion. So just looking at the plumbing, when we have issues with the plumbing at the high school, I'm just gonna use when the pipes corrode in the ceilings and it causes a flood, the custodians and your team fix that 1 or 2 feet of piping that has corroded in the ceiling. But it doesn't do anything for the other 283,950 feet of pipe that needs to be replaced because the plumbing system is so outdated.
Mhm.
So I think that's where it's
Mhm.
tough for people to understand that
Yeah.
the only real way to maintain that system, as outdated as it is to replace.
I mean,
all the pipes.
ultimately tonight, probably, maybe it would have been a good idea to bring the capital plan into the meeting tonight, just so that you could see, because what I did last year in the capital plan, although we didn't affix any costs to this, but now you're starting to see cost estimates come in. In our capital plan, we put placeholders for every single one of these things all the way down. So you'll see mechanical, plumbing, HVAC, electrical, all the way down. We just didn't know what the cost estimates were, but we knew that these were going to be things that, regardless of whether if they chose not to do a high school project or a renovation project, these are things that are barreling down the tracks at us at full steam at this point.
But so were those suggested for the capital plan? Because I don't remember, and I came in at like the tail end
Yeah.
of, I think, when you guys had
Yeah.
done it.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
weren't in the capital, because that's my question is,
No, they were.
Yeah, but
They're listed.
like you said, there was no cost because we were talking about this renovation project, so we were kind of holding off on the cost, and we knew that we would be getting some numbers if we.
Right,
got that.
what we did was Castle Booze did a survey of the building. They went through, they looked at all this stuff, and they gave us this very laundry list of things that needed to be done. So we just took that list and we said, all right, well, here's the list they basically generated a capital plan list for us. So we just kind of copied and pasted and put it into our plan, so that at least there's a placeholder for everything, even though there's not a number affixed to it, because at that point, we didn't have numbers. But if you looked at the high school, there was probably, I don't know.
Well, I did a analysis of what the general budget, because that's the repair stuff.
Right.
Okay, and what the capital budget would look like.
Mhm.
So we have, like on the repair exterior stairs. So that's it. On the capital, it says repaving lots and walkways. So it's a different animal.
It's a different level of
Correct.
work that you're doing.
I use the car as a perfect example. If you have a car, if you maintain your car, you get more mileage out of it. You rotate the tires, that's maintenance. You change the oil, that's
Mhm.
maintenance. You have to replace the tires at 16,000 miles or 25,000 miles. If you don't rotate them, you may do it at 10,000 miles. If you don't put oil in your tank routinely, you'll blow the engine, replace the engine. If you don't wash your car, so on and so forth. And a lot of people don't understand what maintenance is. That's maintenance on a car, is just taking care of the items that they tell you in the book to take care of. Replacement is when you don't maintain, typically you replace, or it's useful life. The roof, 30 or 20-year useful life, unless we buy the warranty for 30. I don't think most people do that. They try to get 25 out of it. As long as you don't have 50 people up on the roof with their boots and nails and spikes and, a boiler system, 30 years out of a boiler maybe.
Yeah, not
If you're lucky.
commercial,
Not
20 if you're lucky.
20. The problem, Nick, at the last building committee meeting, the mayor was there, we talked about it, and she was you're older. We talked about how Torrington has never had a capital spending plan. And I said at the meeting, the best thing to do is go to the Bristol finance page, and they have a beautiful capital plan. Schools, street department, administration, and they spread it out over 10 years. And every year they go to market for bonds. And it might be 4 million today, it might be 11 million next year, from pools to technology. There's, I think, 75 million in technology in the
Yes.
school system. 75 million throughout the schools, but they bonded over time. It's not the mayor's fault, it's not Ryan's fault, it's not the last 5 decades. It's just, we've never done it in Torrington. And thus, we have schools that just, these school couldn't be fixed. High school, you can't fix the high school without spending more than this. And you have a high school that doesn't even meet the requirements for the kids in 10 years. We won't get a technology link for this. We'll end up with the school we have now. So we have to, at some point next year, you had said in the beginning, I think when you first got on board, about, do we have a long-term plan? We have a plan, I think, for the curriculum, but Torrington and the board need a plan for their assets, because we just don't have it. They go to rock.
Well,
And
we
that's
have to be able to keep it in, we
Right.
have a plan.
Yeah, we
No,
do.
no, I know
It
that,
gets-
but it's never been
Gets-
something that anybody ever
Right.
accepted before.
Right.
They don't do it on the street department, they don't do it in the police department, they don't do it. And again, it's not the administration's fault, it's just never been done in Torrington.
Right.
The only thing the city does is they have a replacement of vehicle plan.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
That's it.
That's all we have.
But I think the city is willing to sit down with us to
Oh, I
try and
agree.
figure this out.
Yes,
at this
it was a
point.
positive thing.
Yep.
She acted as if, it's about time
Yeah.
we do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
And so, say for the other schools, we would build this type of analysis into the 5-year capital plan.
Correct.
So going
Started that.
forward, we would
Yeah.
no longer get
Started
these
that. Yeah.
have nothing in the budget, and then all of a sudden,
Right.
That would be
70
the goal.
million.
Yeah.
That's why this committee was established, to really
Right.
start going building
Mhm.
by building and looking
Yeah.
at what the needs are in the building rather than,
Yeah.
when
Absolutely.
it's an emergency, then
Right.
the board finds out about
Right.
things.
Yeah.
And John's been good about really looking and letting us know
Right.
what
Yeah.
some issues are.
Yeah. And at the very least, we would have a list with hopefully a cost estimate, whether we get the money to do it or bonding or whatever. That's not totally up to us, but, but at least we would have that.
Yeah,
Correct.
providing the visibility
Correct.
to
Correct.
taxpayers and, yeah.
Oh,
As
I guess so, sure.
Yeah, I'll scan it. I'll
yeah.
scan it to Ally.
last year,
To Sandy too.
I submitted the capital plan in November. I had only been here for 2 months, and in those 2 months, I dramatically revamped the entire capital plan for all the buildings. And we increased the amount of stuff that was really posted and listed in there. We put numbers to it. And that was great. And the city did do some funding on that capital plan. They didn't fund everything that we requested in last year. So, that's the problem, that, you have this capital plan with lots and lots of funding items down there. And when they don't fund it, it keeps pushing it out and pushing it out and pushing it out. And that's the game that most cities and towns play. It's kick the can down the road kind of thing. And
Correct.
until it gets to a point where, the wheel is no longer worn out, but it's now fallen off the car and you
Yeah.
have no choice but to fix it.
And it doesn't save the taxpayers any money in the long run.
No.
Whether you bond $70 million today and don't do anything for 20 years, or you bond $7 million a year, whatever, at least every 7 years, you're not paying as much on the end, you're paying as you go along. Right now, it looks onerous because
Yeah.
it's been 16 years.
Well, as you know, like you use the example of the car, if you maintain your car well, it's gonna last you longer. And therefore, at the end, you're receiving more out of the car. The same thing with the building, right? I mean, if you maintain your house, it's gonna last longer and you'll get more for it when you go to sell it, you know?
I think the one bad thing about this building was, and they did it probably to save money, was the curtain wall. that
Yes.
shut the exterior of the building.
Mhm.
It's a piece of asbestos panel that thick with no insulation. And then it's a single pane window. There's nothing else in that wall.
Right.
You know, if it had been a block building,
Yeah, it would have been different.
masonry,
Yeah.
you could work within the whole framework.
Yeah. Because like the where I work, the reason renovate to new was at the time was the best way to go is because there's two buildings and it's kind of set up the way the high school is a little bit, but it's the original building was block and then when they put the addition on, it's brick. So you have something there, you have something solid.
You had a line item on there, I read your budget.
Yeah.
Budget with the city,
Yeah.
it was $75,000 for repointing of masonry.
Right.
That was it, the whole exterior of the building.
Yeah.
Ours is gonna be $10 million.
Right. So, you know, so that's also a difference that people don't understand. They think maybe that the whole thing is block, which a lot of schools are, but it's not.
Bristol continues to just add on, replace and repair and maintain. They haven't built a new school in decades. They don't have to.
They built that one consolidated one, they
Well, yes, they
consolidated a
consolidated.
bunch of their stuff into one big building.
And do they roll that capital plan in with their general budget?
Yes.
They do the same thing. They just look at them different?
I don't know. I went online and
Yeah.
started looking at it. If you go online, you'll see that they
Yeah.
have, every year they've got their 10-year plan up on how it adjusts and what they fund and what they don't fund. And what they take down for bonds and what they use out of their budget.
The other thing that I was wondering, just because I see it on this, I see it on our other projects too. Building permit fees to the town. So on
Yep.
here, it's 849,559. On the new schools, it's 1,246,840. It's still confusing to me that we would bond a project for the taxpayers that they're paying for, and then,
See, it's crazy, you have to put it in there, but if you look at that 1.2 million and you look at the financing of it that's in there, which is in the regular, in the new school, which is 3 million. So you have $5 million. You can pay the debt service starting in 2023 for 3 years with that money.
Well, we can
So you
ask-
wouldn't have a tax increase from the school until 25, 26,
just off of the building
of
permit.
the permits
And the interest.
and the $3 million if you didn't use that
They carried the $3 million for the cost of the
financing.
bonds.
Yeah,
I don't think it was
but
an
it's
interest.
gonna be less than
It has to
that.
be less than
Yeah,
that. That's
they have
absurd.
1.2 and 3.8, it's $5 million. 5,029,000. For 3 years, it's 5,090,000 for the debt service. So for those 3 years,
Do we pay permit fees for other projects?
No,
I don't know. I have no idea.
Find permit fees in any other school.
No,
we always have to
construction.
ask
That's why
them
I can't-
to
wasn't sure.
stop it. That's
To waive it.
we asked
To
them to
waive
waive it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just
But it
seems.
has to be in here?
That's what O&G puts in all the time, yeah.
Probably to protect themselves.
Yeah.
We can't go back to them later if the city says no.
Right,
I
if the
imagine
city
saying
says
no,
no,
but-
correct. But yeah, they always waive the permit fees.
Okay,
on,
okay, so this isn't really a
schools.
fixed.
For any of the city buildings or any
Yeah.
municipal, the fees would
Yeah.
get waived, that there would be no permit.
There is a small fee from
The
state.
the state fee
Yeah,
you have to
state-
pay.
you have
the
to pay the state
education
fee, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, it's $5,029,000. Pay for 20, 22, 23, 24, 25.
I think it just makes it all very confusing, like when you have like that permit fee number in there of $1.2 million.
Yeah.
You've got 28 million of contingency in there. If you take those two numbers
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
It reduces the cost of the project almost $30 million. So it's just,
Yeah.
I'm
Well, the-
trying to understand it,
Well,
but
the-
this is all new to me, so
but-
it's.
Remember the issue with the building with the asbestos taking it down, the contingency, you need a big contingency
Oh, yeah,
because you
no,
know,
if the
right,
state
so-
requires
Yeah.
that percentage,
Right,
it just
yeah.
seems.
You know, the CM, not ONG, they're, but the construction manager, whoever it may be,
Yeah.
is at risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what makes the new building a lot easier to stomach. We build a new building, it's built to design, there shouldn't be any change orders unless we change the spec on the building itself.
Right.
There will be on site work, or maybe not, I don't know, but the building itself, it's a fixed price and he's at risk. He's got a big contingency to play with, but we'll review the change orders, and if he deserves a change order, he gets it. If he doesn't, then he won't get it.
And what would happen if you don't use the full contingency?
it reduces the price of the building.
Just reduces what
The
the
project.
state
We don't
pays
spend it.
and what they
So it reduces the cost
cost.
of
for
the project.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's there in case you run
And thus
into a
can
major
reduce
issue.
the taxes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, correct. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So let's say you only used half of it, so you use 14 million instead of 28 million, it reduces the project by 14 million. So
Is that to the taxpayers,
To
or to the
everybody.
states, or
To-
to the reimbursement
total,
rate?
total project.
Total project.
Total
So they don't have to
project.
bond. They start off with bank anticipation notes and some bonds, so after the fee and everything is, and you say, we don't have to bond for the total amount.
Well, actually, I mean, so if we save 10 million in contingency, we don't use 10 million.
Right.
Does the state not fund 6 million of that? Because is that what you're asking?
Kind of the
Well, no,
percentage.
they
62.5%.
reduce,
62.5%.
it's gone. The 10 million is gone off the budget.
Off the
off the
price,
price
yeah,
of the.
price of the project.
Right,
it's
so
not
we'll
the full
save
share.
3, they'll
Yeah.
save, we'll save this, the
Right,
state will save
right,
6,
right,
we'll save 3.
correct, correct.
So we'll save
Yes,
38%
Correct,
Yeah.
on everything we don't spend.
yes.
A question.
Yes, Jess.
And I'm really sorry if you already addressed this because I didn't have the paper in the beginning, but can you explain to me number 2, abatement and demolition? What are we demolishing if we're not tearing down the building?
Oh, we are. We got to,
You want me to, you want to do it?
This is an estimate for a maintenance repair, right?
This is the maintenance repair of the project, Jess. So abatement and demolition would be all of the asbestos, which are those wall panels that are around the building. Those are all transite panels.
Mhm.
That's your asbestos. They would all have to be removed. There'd be a lot of demolition costs with removing those panels. They'd have to set up lots of containment areas and whatnot. So that's a cost in order to abate and remove and demolish the asbestos from the building.
Okay. Yeah, I understood the abatement part. I just wasn't sure about the demolition part. And then number 1, site work. What does that refer to?
I think you know what the assumption was or no? I think I talked to them about it, but we still have work there's gonna be some work up there, sidewalks, parking lots,
Drainage,
Drainage.
lots of drainage issues. That whole courtyard
Mhm.
has drainage issues where we have to bring roto-rooter in to roto-rooter the drains because they flood some of the lower classrooms sometimes. So yeah, there'd be plenty of site work that would get absorbed with that money.
The road up to the little theater was another big
Yeah.
one, and all that parking back
Right.
there.
Okay, so that's what that refers to. And that's just kind of like a round number? Is that?
Yeah,
yes.
my guess it would be a little more than that, but that's my guess.
So the difficult part of the repair project estimation is you don't know when you're doing it, right? So if we do the HVAC plumbing today, this is the cost, but if we do it in 5 years, or we do it 200 feet at a time, or however they want, the price changes. So we asked to give them the best estimates based on the current
Sure.
condition.
There's a national, for these things, they use what's called sometimes means. ONG's done dozens and dozens. It's square foot. They'll take the total area of asphalt and they'll apply a number to it. If it's 200,000 square feet of asphalt, it's probably $5 a square foot, let's say, for mill and pave. They'll do an estimate for drainage based on square foot or lineal footage numbers. This is based on no drawing, it's just conceptual. If, whatever way we do go, every level of drawing, every level we get to in the drawings, the pricing continues until we have a final set. If we don't agree with the amount of paving that needs to be done, we can cut some paving out. And they'll change the drawings. We can change, the exterior of the building, there's nothing we can do. Windows have to come out. I don't know, are there studs back there? I'm not even sure there's studs in the wall. Anything on that exterior wall's gotta come out.
It's steel.
Steel.
So that all comes out. Other than that, it'll be room by room or area by area as they go along. But it's purely square foot numbers and estimates.
Mhm.
And these things, I mean, this kind of job will not come in less. Because this is the kind of job, it's every contractor's dream.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but it is. And I'm not talking about O&G. If I'm a contractor and I bid the job and I know this is the number and I got this kind of, I will make sure my guys are out there looking for stuff every
The
second
one
of the
thing
day.
one thing that the contractors make out with on this is the number of change orders.
Right.
In a new construction, your change orders are far, far less because it's a design build. This, you're working within the confines of what exists, and the change order, where contractors make their money, and I know because the year prior to working for here, I worked for an HVAC contractor. And as the minute that they heard change orders, you see that the boss, the big light bulb lit above his head and a big smile went on. That's where they make their money in change orders.
Can you
Yeah,
explain
can you
that though?
explain that?
So for instance, I work for an HVAC company, and they would take in, we did a renovation job, let's say down in Bridgeport. And the engineers designed this building in a certain way. And so we come in and we would install the ductwork and we would tie it into the existing building. Once we started tying it into the existing building, we would find deficiencies within the existing building where we tied it in. And so those deficiencies weren't accurately depicted on our drawings or specifications. So therefore, they're not in the scope of work of the contractor. So if it's not written in the scope of work or laid out on the plans anywhere, that becomes a change order to the amount of money that they bid for the job. Now it's like a fair game negotiation, wheeling and dealing as a used car dealer to get the maximum amount of money. And with change orders, they always come at a hefty price because somebody missed something.
Mhm.
So we don't build in contingencies into like this. It's just into new.
Mhm.
So there's
No,
no,
there's a condition.
There is a
oh,
contingency.
is there?
there is.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I don't know how
it's
much it is. I don't
The
know.
third one.
It's reimbursable.
Oh,
It's
sorry.
It's a combination of things.
Yeah, that contingency that's built in there, guaranteed to get blown up in a project like
Oh,
this.
yeah.
Mhm.
Guaranteed.
Yep.
I've never seen a construction project renovation not blow up a contingency money.
I mean, in my mind, this building, when they're done demoing, you'll see steel structure, that's it. I don't know what else you'd see, all the ceilings come down.
Yeah, it's basically, that building's kind of like constructed as almost like an exoskeleton.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
really interesting
Yeah,
the
it
way
is.
it's designed, but it's actually designed as an exoskeleton. And then they built within the skeleton, that's where all those walls are and stuff. It's actually rather interesting.
Who knows?
Yeah. It's,
Can we get the, next time we meet, can we have the capital plan? So the.
Yeah, we have to do it
yeah,
because
we have to
you have to approve it in November.
submit
it
it
goes
by
in
December.
City in December.
When is it due to see the
December 31st.
31st? Oh, the end of the month. Okay.
So are we supposed to, in the past, I don't remember how we did with this because it wasn't really facilities, but will we talk to the city up front about these things or are we gonna wait until we have it all completed and present it to them? The capital improvements plan that we, what do you think?
So, I mean, I'm hoping we can get this committee together with people from the city, people from the board, people from police department, everybody to look at the whole capital needs of the whole city.
Mhm.
Because I think that's the problem when everyone isolates in their own box, you end up maybe not doing prioritized projects in the order that they should. Since I've been on the board, and Ellen, John, Armand.
Yeah.
It's always kind of been put in the capital what you absolutely have to have right now and not really what's needed. So
Well,
that's,
but this year is different. I mean,
Well, you
we're not-
also forecast for the future,
no,
what you
but
think,
I've always
but
wanted, like what John's
Yeah.
saying,
Right.
even if something doesn't need to be done today, I think people need to know that this big item is on the radar,
Yeah.
not when it blows and then we find out
Yeah.
about
I
it.
think that's part of the challenge of
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is there was no visibility or forward look of it. I think everybody knew, but never the amount. And that's part of that.
Right, you're right.
I think,
And I think that's why we're trying to change it.
Yeah.
Like,
Jim,
Which makes sense.
Well, so that's, I guess, when I look at it, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm clearly not a maintenance person, but,
Oh, Fiona.
they
can give you a
learned
hammer
lot
with
about it,
screwdriver.
but,
Don't worry.
um,
I could teach anybody to fix something.
yeah. So like I look, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, if this doesn't pass, I'm not going through this process again. So if anyone else on the board is interested, it's not me, I'm out. We need to start maintaining. I'm not spending another 2 years on this. But there's things that we have to get addressed, and we don't have 2 years to wait to get addressed, like the gymnasium. We have to do something with that gymnasium pretty quickly. The abatement would have to be done, the windows.
Well, I honestly think that, I mean, you have an architect and an engineering firm that's involved in the process. And if, you know, God forbid, something goes awry with the vote and it doesn't pass, then you need to consult with the architect and the engineer, because they've spent a lot of time reviewing, looking at this existing building as part of the requirements to put the project together, because the state charged them that way. They said, look, we want repair, we want, you know, renovate as new, we want new. So they've got the history, and they're going to be the ones that really kind of look at what are going to be the immediate needs that have to be addressed right away. And then it's really important to work with the engineering company and the architectural company on that, because it's not just, this is the way the overlay looks, all right? So if I say we're gonna fix the gym isn't just standalone here. The gym involves the HVAC, involves the plumbing. This stuff is all overlaid together. So in a project like this, it's very important for you to kind of forecast what needs to get looked at, so that you're not going back and forth. And we did the gym, but now we got to go back and do the plumbing after we've already done the gym. And
It's just like when the city, when you do the maintenance of the whatever it is, the electrical, and then they blacktop it, then they come in with the something else.
the
they rip
gas
it up
main,
again.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
Nothing
nothing is
irritates you more
coordinated.
than to have a brand new road and all of a sudden
Suddenly rip
they're
it up.
digging it up because they got to put the gas main in because nobody thought about it. So
Yeah.
that's why it's really important to stay with that architectural engineering
about it.
firm and make sure that they are a necessary part of anything in this that has to happen, because like Gary said, and he's absolutely right, it may say maintenance on the top of this, but this is far from maintenance.
No.
This is far from maintenance.
Well, how does this fit into our pathways and our NEAS?
Well,
Well, it's-
Well, and I
we're
think
gonna-
I think that's a really good point, because Mario mentioned this at our last meeting and said, you know, even if you did all of this, it just doesn't even touch any of the things that we need educationally. The things that NEASC had mentioned in terms of making sure we have the 21st century skills, facility, flexibility and use in a classroom, which Mike Fabiaschi spoke about the other evening. Just really making sure that we have the wiring, we have the technology, the bandwidth, all of this that, you
And that's
know,
not us.
Ally and her team
Nope.
are trying to piece
No.
together day by day and fix what they can. But when the structure is such that it really doesn't lend itself to any of that. In addition, when we want to offer the pathways, we want to be able to operate these accelerated courses, programs, internships, apprenticeships. We need lab areas, and that's really very frustrating not to have some of that. The other night, it was also mentioned that our community is so wonderful and so supportive, and I really, truly think our partners would come forward and, you know, help us with some of the supplies and the materials and just the people to come and help. We've already seen that happening in our very limited structure that we have. So to really be able to do it and do it well. And to have people, wouldn't it be great to have our own students stay, but also to be the focus of the Northwest Corner and have students come from other areas, just like we have students go and then we have to pay for tuition.
Well, that's the problem. This does not, this does
It
not.
does none of that, right?
So, that's, I
Correct.
guess, how do we begin with the city to discuss? It's either gonna be, we have to have a plan to meet the needs or the requirements of NEAS and allow for pathways, or I don't wanna call it new curriculum, but tech wing and the nursing program. We need to have those labs and those tech wings, or we just continue the way we are, have no tech wing to speak of. We have some classes, but we don't have a facility to do it in. And we'll have a building that just got fixed. Windows were replaced, ceilings were replaced, HVAC was replaced. It was abated. We have a new roof and have the same walls. It doesn't, we can't just go to the city, in my opinion, and say, well, we have to abate immediately. We have to take care of the gym because we have to. But then when do we talk about the things that we need to do to move forward?
The
don't
hard
know.
part in terms of where we're at now is that there are so many things wrong. I mean, I don't know when those corroded pipes are going to burst and, okay, I know, don't say it. But I'm just saying, so many
Yeah.
things are out there. Those are things that I do worry about, that are just basic. So what do you choose?
The other thing we're not gonna get, and I'm not an expert on this, but it's just common sense. You're not gonna get the efficiency out of that building, because that building is
Oh, no.
1960
Bill,
building designed like it was 1950, and you're not going to get the same efficiency out of a new building. So your energy costs are not going to decrease as much as with a new building, which, I mean, it could save us $300,000 a year just by having a new high school in energy costs. I mean, that's something. So that takes off from our yearly operating budget, so that's a
So
good
at
thing.
This as a, Armin, you're right to a large degree. This as a maintenance repair
Yeah.
project, you would nowhere be looking at getting to net zero.
No,
Not even close. You wouldn't even get to an EUI of probably 30. You would probably be at that EUI somewhere 45 and above. And remember, 58 is the minimum right now.
Right.
So you're still looking at utility bills that at 58, I think the utility bills were roughly right about what we paid now.
Mhm.
And then don't forget that that's adding the air conditioning component in.
right.
So, yes, you'd have a building that's air conditioning, but then you have no savings whatsoever, no sustainable savings for
Right.
the future. And that's something that's, I'm huge on sustainability and looking at those future costs. It's so important because those are revenue generating things. They don't steal from your revenue, they generate from them if you're sustainable.
Right.
so let me ask you a question. Above those ceilings, I forget the height, so not, the height of the ceiling isn't that high, but you have bar joists, and how are you gonna run your HVAC ductwork? Because I think
Well, so that's how, when they, in the 2098, 2000 project that they did,
Yeah,
it was
it was-
the $28 million,
yeah.
whatever, in that project, the building didn't have the two heat techs on A and B. Those are those great big huge boxes that are up on the roof. Those are the heat techs. And so what they did was, because of the ceiling height and the bar joist, because that whole both buildings, A and B, are bar joist front to back, right? And the two hallway walls are they're the main carrying walls in the building. So what they did was, to make up for that, they actually dropped the ductwork down below the ceiling in the classrooms, and then they boxed it in with ceiling tiles. And that's how they were able to get the heat that they ran from those two heat tack units and the ventilation into the classrooms. And so that becomes a major problem because your ceiling heights, all those things, you would probably end up going away from a large air handling system and going to something like individual room systems, like Carrier makes one, where you have these huge racks of condensers on the roof and stuff like that, and they would just run piping down to the individual air handlers in each room, and it would get very elaborate and very expensive for not a whole lot of savings.
I mean, if we do it right, a new building would pay for itself, you know, the cost of building, it would pay for itself if we do it right.
I know we're jumping around here, but I
Sorry.
did want to go, no, I'm sorry, I should have added this when we were talking about not just NEOSC, but Donna and I are both on the governor's business task force. And this is happening throughout the state. Right now, it's just 18 districts that are involved. And they really want us to expand that whole internship, apprenticeship, whether you're going to
Yeah.
college, whether you're going out and getting a job. They really want us to be able to revitalize the towns because we want to keep our young people here in Connecticut. A lot of students are leaving and they're going they're going to other states. So we need to have something to offer them. So we really, that whole piece that we're talking about is just not just, you know, a building for pathways. It's a building for all of these things so that we can have those partnerships coming and going and really becoming a model. We were chosen because we do so much with our community. We do so many internships. Only 18 districts are working on this right now. So it would be great to be ahead of the curve and really be able to offer this.
And the other thing is the new building with the new designs of flexible spacing would open it up to have a you know, longer use and flexible use. So, you know, people are saying, well, it's 712, and if it were, you know, what about if, you know, high school population increases? Well, that would be awesome because then you can always flex the middle school space, you know, as high school space and move the middle, you know what I'm saying? You always down the road, you know, in 20 years, you can always, you know, change that around because of the way they're building buildings now, not thinking about this is it. It could be this, it could be that, it could be whatever you need. So that's a nice thing about the new building and the flexible spacing. I mean, we have the COVID thing going on. You can open up spaces so you can have more kids come in because you can space them out. I mean, those things that, you know, that those little things which are actually big things, but people don't think about them.
So our task is gonna be, I mean, let's assume the worst, it doesn't pass. Then the task is gonna be immediately come up with,
How are we going to do this?
how are we gonna do this, but also how are we gonna address NEASC and pathways, and
Mhm.
are we gonna ignore that, which would be terrible, it'd be awful.
Well, we can't ignore it, but we'll have to
Well,
be
we can only
creative.
do what the city
Yeah,
gives
we
us.
can't ignore it because, you know.
I mean, I think that's an interesting point though, so we all have to think about what our plan B is.
Right.
We all just recently saw that newspaper article, so this whole process has brought an eye-opening to all of us about a lot of the things. And I can't remember the city now, but where they're actually suing the Board of Ed
It's
members
in
and
Pennsylvania.
the
it's in
city
Pittsburgh. I
council
think it's in
and
Pennsylvania.
for the
It is
condition of the
Pennsylvania.
building.
Yeah,
Right.
because they haven't, yeah.
And it
Which is
was
why I pushed
upheld
this
in
so
the
hard.
court that they have the ability to sue them all.
Mhm.
And that's not right, the only reason, obviously, why we would want to do something, but
No.
as a board member going through this process and knowing more than I did 2 years ago, I wouldn't be comfortable to just sit back and
We
say,
can't.
let's just keep letting this building
Nope.
go and having kids in there. It's just, I guess I'd be interested just for everybody, the board members. What do you think our plan B is?
Listen, I don't, I thought about it, I don't know how this, I've said this in 3 meetings already. This will never work,
Mhm.
but, and the mayor listened, and it was good. And she was open to where we go. You know, if we don't get it now, and we have to resort to something else, if we had to, we lose out as well on all the other things that we can efficiently, you know, close down, replace, savings on, all the things that we know with a constantly decreasing student enrollment, we're gonna probably have to close a school or two, or reuse one school for the, you know, for kindergarten or pre-K, like you said, the state forces mandatory pre-K. We can then use our buildings much more efficiently.
Mhm.
But if we don't get this approved, we're back to where Torrington always is. You know, using buildings inefficiently, living with less than what we need, and My son, it was 5 years ago, I told you this, and he was working for Malloy. And he'd call me once a week, and we'd argue about politics, of course. And he'd say, listen, governor staff told me, he was the head of policy and planning, that they don't like to work with Torrington because Torrington doesn't take care of its students. They spend no money relative to the rest of the state on education. I had no idea. And he said, you got to mess with special ed. And that's when I realized that 900 and some kids versus the 600 other averages. And you don't spend money. You know, your schools are a mess, you need the facilities, and the state doesn't put the right amount of money toward the number of children. And so that's why I tried to get on the board, and I finally got on, but it's starting to come to light that we just don't plan properly. Not only here, I mean, just the city of Torrington, you know, maybe it's not the time. I don't know, but, you know, make do with what you have, but it doesn't work in education.
They planned.
You know, the state wants
Plans
us,
and everything.
wants this to pass.
Oh, yeah.
No, I know
The
that.
state
I know,
wants
I
this
know.
to pass. Yes.
I'm just saying it doesn't. I don't know. I really don't.
Well,
Versus the
so I
city.
just
I know.
feel like whatever happens, we need to be ready for what's next, right after. And
Well, I can say this, we have to adjust the abatement and the gym. Those things like, I don't think kids should have to live with what is there. Nobody should. You know, that's not something those are the things you just don't ignore because there's no money. But that doesn't do anything for.
In 2014, when Michelle tried to get money, we gave her a price, Mary and I gave her a price, we looked at it, $7 million. The gym back then and the locker rooms.
Yeah.
Those locker rooms are atrocious.
Well, yeah, I'm assuming that goes with the gym.
Yes, so this was 2014. It was when we just did the field with doing animations. He said, maybe we can get some money. It was $7 million then.
so with escalation.
Of course.
4.5%,
4.5%.
it's like 12.5.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't reimburse anything is what you're saying.
Well,
Is that
they
what you
get
mean?
some,
They were gonna we were trying to just get the money like they did with the field. They just gave us 2.9 million. Boom.
So the problem with that, because I was called at work that day when the state came in to inspect, to come back to Torrington to do the walkthrough, it was when the previous superintendent was here.
Yeah.
So the problem is because of the roof and so there's like, it's not like one thing, it's not just that this is a really old gymnasium, the original gymnasium. The issue is that major things haven't been replaced that should have been replaced over 60 years, not, again, this isn't a 10-year problem, this is a 60-year problem.
Well, that's going back to what John said, though. He said, you have to work backwards.
Yeah.
So like, okay, so you want to do the gym, okay, but what about the roof? Because then if you don't fix the roof and the roof leaks, you got a brand new gym, you're all done. So then you gotta work backwards and you gotta start with what's gonna,
And in this project
that's a lot of
here,
money.
in this project here, the other thing that you have to be careful of is that the old adage, he who has the gold makes the rule. That's the golden rule, okay? The state has the gold, so they're gonna make the rules. So if you say, okay, well, we're gonna do the roof and we really only have enough money to do the roof over the gym, the state's gonna go, well, we ain't gonna reimburse you for just the roof over the gym. We want the roof on the whole building done.
Right.
You know, so they're gonna make the rules on what's gonna get done and what isn't gonna get done.
Because it's gonna cost them more money to do
Exactly.
the roof piecemeal.
Exactly. And
They
they
know
don't
that.
wanna spend more money.
They're right. Yeah. So,
Remember, they may not give you reimbursement.
right, they might not.
Because you're not consolidating or doing anything.
Correct.
Right.
The golden rule. He who has the gold makes. the
Costa
rule.
has the rule. He
That's
has the
right.
gold. And he does,
And he makes the
and
rules.
he makes the rule. He makes very clear.
That's right.
Was there any other new configurations or plans that were looked at that were cheaper, I guess? Or, is this kind of like, because I hear a lot about, are we going after the stars, right? When we should be kind of, maybe by the
We don't have
trees.
anything in this building, we should.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember if it was the building committee or where. we talked about what other projects around the state
Mhm.
are
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
I mean, we're putting 7 through 12 with central office in 40,000 square feet more than the existing current high school.
Right.
We're not, I can say,
not-
just from my
it's not the Taj
conversation,
Mahal.
we're
Yeah.
not getting approved for that.
No, they use the
So
square
people
foot.
are
Yes.
waiting
Yeah.
for that
Yeah,
heyday.
it's not gonna happen.
Not gonna happen.
Okay.
And they've made it clear
Yeah.
to everyone that's
Yeah.
asked, they're not approving.
Yeah.
So
And-
you
Yeah,
can go it alone.
Well, I can tell you how
Yeah.
far off we are. I know that the last school that ONG did, it ran at 5 something a square foot. This is 365 a square foot. It was started off as middle of the road.
Yeah.
Have everything we need, but we have all the facilities we need, we have all the, the square footage. It'll be nice, and then hopefully it's gonna be, I think it's, hopefully it's masonry. I haven't even looked at that.
But there's no bells and
No,
whistles,
there's no-
which I would have liked to, honestly.
Right.
I mean, heck, I wanted a pool and an.
This building, as I gave out to the building committee, I went over the last 2017, which is on the governor's list for middle school and high school per pupil, because that's what we
Yeah.
do per pupil.
That was a
You
good
know,
thing.
And we are the most efficient one in the 6 buildings that were approved.
But that's not to say as it's designed by the architect.
Yeah.
That we don't find savings or things come in lower.
Yeah.
Of
And
course.
then we apply it, we can either decide, if we apply it to some bells and whistles.
Yeah.
Or not spend it at all,
Yeah.
but,
But,
I don't
yeah,
know what bells and whistles would be.
and actually, we discussed like energy and, solar and maybe, those kinds of things, because even though you're spending a little more upfront, it's gonna save you money in the long run. So, we even discussed some of those things, but, that needs to get approved first before we start getting into that. So, we're not looking at just, how are we gonna build this, and, we're looking at everything.
The new building, as you said, change orders should be very minimal, unless they dig down and find something
Exactly.
wrong.
Well, underground, yes.
Right, underground, but on top of ground,
Unless we change the spec, although
Correct.
the architects do make mistakes.
yeah, no doubt about it. Well, when they make a mistake, they pay for it.
Yeah.
Well, that's not really true.
Well,
Their
all
contract's gonna
all
be-
my projects, if we're getting 62% reimbursement, 62, they pay the 30.
Ed will make sure.
Yeah,
Ask Brian, he's had a couple of projects.
yeah,
But they
because,
pay.
well, don't they have to bond for that in case they
No, they-
flub?
No,
They don't have to bond for flubbing on the.
no.
I think the other piece, though, is that it's constructed so efficiently
Correct.
and so
Right.
compact. And it took a while to get to this plan, that really there is no wasted space.
I'll tell you what can happen with the architect. They'll design it, we do the drawings, everybody agrees, and then when they start working, well, that's not what we want. Well,
Of course.
You approve the drawings.
Yeah.
So they have to decide.
Right.
Ellen, that's how.
But this isn't just a building to build a new school to bring the kids in that we have. This is also looking to the future and the future of education. It's
Right.
not just, this is what we have, we need a new building
Right.
and just take them from here and put them here. It's for the future.
I also think the only things you could really scale back on, which I don't think people would want to, is combining into one cafeteria, which where we could
No.
never feed the
No.
number of kids we
Right.
have in one. cafeteria.
and we don't want to have one
So
gym.
you don't want
Right.
7 and 8
No.
together.
Yeah.
We really
We
worked
promised we
hard.
wouldn't.
Correct.
We
Yeah.
promised it
Separated.
wouldn't happen.
There was a couple of questions that people have asked me on the internet and all that. What about the cafeterias? Is 2 separate
Yeah.
cafeterias,
That's
you know,
important.
one kitchen though.
That's
great.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of kids to feed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
I
is.
think you
Sure.
could possibly do it in one cafeteria, even if you wanted the kids together.
Unless you started lunch at 9 AM.
The day
I mean,
before.
that's my biggest worry, because I think that there's people that think there's this other option,
Yeah.
and
there
there
is.
really isn't.
No.
You know, and I'm not saying that to scare people. I'm just saying, we spent enough time going through all this stuff that I just hope people don't vote thinking that there's this other cheaper option for a new building. 'Cause
Nope.
There's really not.
We looked at the most efficient, for cost savings, and the most educationally appropriate. We looked at those 2 things, so, by, combining 7 through 12, close a building. I mean, you save money there. I mean, close this building, keep central office up. There's a lot of things. What is this, $30,000 a year to heat? Something like that.
Plus, they haven't done any maintenance really.
Yeah.
You know, the roof,
Yeah.
the pointing,
Yeah.
the only thing they did was the underground tank.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
There's sheet plastic in the attic,
yes.
that prevents the rain from falling into Ferguson's office.
Nice.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Because why invest in this building if we
Right.
can, if we have another
Well,
option?
we've also been talking about moving this building for years.
Yeah.
And the whole time I've been on the board.
Yeah.
It's been talked about.
Yeah, I mean, I just think the board needs to really start thinking, because I don't think we're gonna have a lot of time
No.
after to develop a plan.
Well, that's why I said we have to meet with, we know a couple people on city council and that's sitting against it. Well, they're gonna have to, Mr. Cavanero and Mr. Oliver particularly, they're gonna have to sit and look at what we're thinking. We can't just work at it without them being included from the
Right.
beginning, or at least.
Right.
Yeah.
Because their thought is, we're not looking for 21st century, we're just building a building.
Right, well, and then if we don't get it approved, there's nothing left to do but to spend $10 million for the next
Right.
30 years to fix it.
And what happens with the city, with the state? So the state, so what happens if the project doesn't get approved? What happens then?
What do
with-
we do then?
Yeah.
So we could apply for a different project
Yep.
next June.
Next
Right.
June, like
Next
June
June.
of 21?
Yeah.
Right, we have to, if, let's say it's one, but if it gets defeated, then we gotta start the whole process over again.
Mhm.
Okay. And you have to have a referendum again if you're doing the project before June 30th. So it goes on the calendar January of 2022.
Uh-huh.
It gets approved June of 2022. So now you have a year, 22 to 23, and then you don't even start anything till 24.
And it can't be the same thing. It's gotta be something different.
And in the
Yes.
meantime,
That's,
this needs to be done.
Yeah, because then
Really?
because we
Yeah,
can't
'cause
wait
you're out
for
for
the
years.
next project. We gotta start thinking, how are we gonna do this? You know, and, you
Or
know,
tap one the way it's coming through.
Yeah.
The bigger
Yeah.
items, but then I would ask, and which is why I wouldn't support going this route again.
Exactly.
Because once you start putting money in this building.
then you
now
gotta stay
you're
with
just
it.
wasting taxpayers' money.
Right.
We put a $12.5 million gym to keep the gym opened and functioning. Then what, you walk away from it?
Right, how do you not- because- Because at that point, you've done a new roof, you've done a gym, and you probably have done something with the heating system.
Well, we'd have to do the doors and windows abatement as well.
If we
That's-
can get the money to do it.
Before you get all crazy with that, just remember that regardless of what happens, your plan B's gotta include the architectural engineering firm. 'Cause you're
Right.
not gonna do
Oh,
it-
sure.
you're
Yeah,
not gonna do
right.
Can I
it.
interrupt for a minute? Sorry. I put it in the chat. I have to leave. I have another I need to excuse myself. I have another meeting at 6:30 and Jess has to leave too. So
Which is why I'm not there in person tonight, because I knew I was gonna have to be somewhere at this time. So, sorry.
I just didn't want you to just think I just like disappeared. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Night.
Bye, Jess. So it's fine. You're right. How would we get the money for the architects and engineers? So that if we had to go back and. start
well, we
over.
remember, we went to the state for the Alliance grant. We rewrote the Alliance grant to pay for the architect and engineer,
Right.
and they agreed to that.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
come
what
on,
it comes down
Well,
to.
next time, we would have to put in our budget,
And then.
Mhm.
It would come out of the general budget.
Yeah.
and The kids would.
because I don't think the Alliance would give us that
No,
again.
a second time? No.
A second time.
No.
The state's out of patience with
Yeah.
us as well
Yeah,
as a town. They've said numerous times that Torrington never supports education, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure how flexible they're gonna be.
yeah, no, that
Well,
would
we
get
try.
rejected
It's
right away.
not for lack of trying on the board's part.
Of course.
Yeah, no, it's not, but I think, we've all gotta be real about what this is, especially when we're
Right.
out talking to people in the community. Because we certainly don't wanna be the ones misrepresenting what some of our options might be.
Right.
The options
Even
are
in 9
grim.
through 12, Mario and I got together with, I think it was Ken from ONG. And it would only save us, I wish I brought it, but I didn't bring it. It would be about $20 million less.
Mhm.
for
The
us to-
state won't, I was just gonna say, the state
No, I
won't
understand that.
approve
Even
that
if they would,
because
it's
it's
only
not
$20
fiscally
million.
responsible.
Right.
And we still have to work on either renovating Ford School.
Yeah.
It didn't include bringing up the administrative offices. And there were a number of things that outweighed it completely. The cost alone, just in the savings that we would give up far outweighed that extra $20 million over 20 years. It didn't work.
Right. You just have to remember that the state is looking at the enrollment projections.
Yep.
So that's what drives this bus.
No, I know.
And so if they are saying kids are leaving, kids aren't being born, kids are
Yeah.
not being born in Connecticut, these are all the factors that they look at. So they're not going to say, oh, we'll just give you money for a 9 to 12 because it's not fiscally responsible. The state holds the purse strings. It's
Yeah.
like what
No, I
John
know.
was saying.
Yeah.
They don't have to approve the project.
No.
We have to go and present this to them. That's what we did in February.
Sell it to them.
And that's why, exactly. And so you have to convince them that this is fiscally responsible. They have looked at all of this. And so then they can tell you, no, we don't think it's financially responsible. We
It's
don't
funny.
think that it's,
They should make a video.
yeah,
The last time that Ed and I were there for the roof project, they should make a video of what you have to go through
right.
just to get the money for a small roof project.
Right.
I mean, it's like the Inquisition. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Just make a video and show the people of what you have to go through to get that money from the state. And it's amazing that you even get money. It
Yeah.
really is.
It's a difficult process.
It's a very difficult process.
Well, and I think seeing what that number is, right, of where it's the renovation, it's the pathways, it's supporting all that's in the NASDAQ, and it's what we have to do for Forbes, it's,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Exactly.
But I think there's a lot of talk around this project, costing $4 million more, when the reality is, it's probably a lot more.
Oh,
than
It
that.
is. Oh, it is a
Oh,
And
lot.
so what is that number,
Probably double.
what does that
Yeah.
look like? Because
Right,
Yeah.
especially ultimately.
I
Yeah.
think people don't,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
hard to,
Yeah.
because they don't know all those ins
You're
and
not
outs.
closing Forbes. You're not closing this building.
And you don't have pathways.
And
You don't
you're-
have the pathways.
Well,
Yeah,
those are
some-
limited.
And-
It's
And
limited.
you might have to shut down part of the school in order to do some of the
Yes.
renovations.
Well,
So the
it'll be down
busing is
for a
going
year.
to do.
Yeah.
It sounds
The
like the
busing
whole,
is gonna be astronomical.
with the way the school was built, it sounds like the whole school would have to be shut down.
Yeah.
So we'd have to,
Then as it's on
rent
piece by piece,
space.
you have modular stuck in the middle of the fields.
or we'd have to rent space from a high school nearby and come in and
I know.
second shift.
No,
Yeah.
I hate.
I think the
portables.
line, the
As
list is
beyond.
gonna get really
It
long.
really does.
Yeah, so,
No, you're right.
and then busing.
I think
Okay.
Mario's been putting it out. I mean, he's been posting a lot of this.
Yeah.
I don't know if social media, so.
Yeah.
I know on social media, the breakdown. I think this may have been posted. I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Showing, and he posted numbers on just the high school, and then he posted a number of other things. It seems like it's the same people that are voicing their opposition over, we don't believe it, we don't believe it. It's a core 4 or 5% of people.
They're never gonna believe.
Well, there's some people that don't
Yeah.
want to spend
Right.
any money,
Right.
but the
Yeah.
problem is that ship has sailed.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
You
They don't-
can't not spend money.
I don't think Torrington, right, has a history of passing on the first, so,
You're right.
that,
You're right.
Wasn't
Torrington school did.
Torrington did.
Torrington did, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I sense that it's a little different this time because most people that are still here went to high school there and know how
Yeah.
old it is.
Yeah.
I hope I
Yeah.
feel it. I hope I have the right
The
sense. but-
nostalgia.
Yeah, and we actually, we've been spending, we've been talking about since I've been on the board, which is over 4 years now total, and we've been talking about it since I've been on the board, and then we put together that committee, so we really went through everything. Fiona, right?
Yeah.
We didn't say, okay, well, this building needs to go. We didn't say that. We just said, what are some options?
I
And then-
never thought we would be building.
No, I never
I
thought that
thought
too.
it was
I thought
renovate.
it'd be a renovate to do. I really thought that. I thought that's where we were gonna go. That would be the,
I think we
most cost
said that in
effective.
those leadership committee meetings.
Yeah.
that you guys were
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
Everybody's out.
We thought it'd be renovation.
Yeah.
Because the architects had thought the numbers would come in lower.
Mhm.
But I was really surprised, but you know what? It's gonna be better for us to do it that way. because
we-
we're gonna see so much more
And
savings.
we did our due diligence in order to
We
get to
did,
where
that's
we
what I'm
are.
saying,
And-
right?
and-
4 years?
Right, but if you weren't involved in it, you don't see it. You know,
Yeah.
you don't
Hear-
know,
yeah, you don't.
you
Yeah.
know?
So,
Always gonna be cheaper to maintain a
So
brand
you
new
need to
building under
advocate.
warranty.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
yeah,
And the state will look more favorably on us
Mhm.
because we're doing something for education.
and that's gonna help us in the future when we need
Correct.
something else from the state. So we got
Right.
also gotta look at that,
Yeah.
you know, keep happy the person who holds the
The
gold,
golden rule.
right? You know,
But to
Sounds
Gary's
like-
point, I really do think we need a meeting with the
Yeah.
city
There has to
council
be, a, wake up.
Yeah.
and board of finance. They need to,
Or they need to tell us how we're gonna do it different.
Yeah.
They can't.
I
I
just,
mean,
I
they
don't, I
know,
don't,
the mayor said at the
Mhm.
meeting last week that, I've been in her office for 5 years talking about this building.
Yeah.
Sick of hearing about it. I mean, she knows about the building. It's not that they don't know, it's just a matter of
Mhm.
paying for it. So,
right, but I don't think they realize what's gone into it and I think they need to be, especially those two need to be brought up to speed.
Well, we gave them, city council,
But it doesn't mean
I
that they
know,
read it.
I know, we gave the
That's the
city
thing.
council 100 pages. They didn't, two of the members didn't read it because they asked the questions that were in the 100
Yeah,
pages.
I agree.
Mhm.
It's,
Yeah.
yes,
Well, but an easy way might be, okay, we didn't get approved. This is where we are. These are the things that have to be fixed. Here's $35 million. Let's start with that next year because we can't put off the abatement. We can't put off
Mhm.
the gym. The windows have to go because once you start the abatement,
Yep.
well, the windows go, the exterior walls go, all the sheetrock goes, all the framing goes, any plumbing in the wall go.
Mhm.
I mean, it's $40 million.
Yeah.
That's without a roof. And
That's
and
just
that's
the
not
start.
counting displacing the students.
Yeah.
actually, that doesn't include engineering costs,
And all that,
architectural
right,
costs, and software.
right, right.
So, they can't deny it. They can go up and they can,
Yeah.
if they want to test the little glue around the windows, let them have a little taste,
Mhm.
But it is what it is, and.
Yep.
they have
No,
to-
I agree.
they have
this
to
is a
address
Hail
something.
Mary. That's the test.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need this. Not this, we need school,
All right.
new school, we need the.
Anything else?
Nope.
Comments for good of the order? Are we at that point?
Yeah, we are.
John, we're gonna start. John?
So start with your committee people.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we went around the table. No?
You do your committee
and then around the
Well, usually we're sitting together, that's
Yeah.
why. It
Yeah,
usually
that's right.
starts, we usually
Yeah,
sit in a
start
row.
with Nikki.
No comment. I'm
Yeah.
good. Thanks.
Everybody else? We gotta go to everybody else, or we're just gonna?
If you want.
ask for-
You're in charge.
Ellen, how about you?
All set.
Sue?
All good.
Ally? You on it? John? All right. Can I have
Good
a,
meeting, I will say that. We ran a better meeting than
than you expected?
maybe you were there.
Was a
I
nice
have a motion
comment,
for
John.
adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
all right.